Joining us now, she's in her second season as head coach at Texas A&M, coming off an NCAA tournament season, winning 35 games. Of course, I speak of a coach who's been to the World Series. She's coached on the U.S. national team. She's done a lot in the sport. I speak of Trisha Ford joining us here on In the Circle. How you doing?
Howdy, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me. Excited to be talking softball again, right? Year two and getting ready to go.
I like her traditional get together to talk about your teams. And last season in particular, nobody really knew what to expect, at least from the outside,
Right.
what to expect in your first year, what you inherited. You go 35 wins, you make a regional out there in the NCAA tournament. When you reflect on last year, what comes to mind after what you accomplished? Consider it was your first year and kind of learning on the fly what you had and people learning you.
Yeah, I actually, I thought it was a solid year, a year that I felt like a lot of our foundational pieces were laid. Our team now knows what to expect out of us, what our standard is, what our process is, what practice is. Just everything's just a little bit more smoother this year. And it's just because they understand how things are going to work. So last year, I thought the team responded, tremendously with us, and really, I felt like outperformed in a lot of our games. We played some really tough games, and it got us ready for a conference, and in conference and in postseason, even our postseason games, those were really, close ball games. And so you learn from them, and they drive you for the next year. And I'm excited. We got a bunch of new faces again this year, and some that have rejoined us. And I'm excited to see, what that looks like this year.
What did you learn about yourself, having coached a new program but in a new conference? What did you learn about yourself from last year?
Yeah, I think, for the most part, it's just getting used to each conference kind of runs itself differently, and getting to know different personnel. So getting to know the umpires, getting to know different administrators. And when you go, I haven't been to a lot of these facilities, and obviously this year I will be going to a lot of new facilities. So I think just kind of the nuts and bolts of things is something that I don't know, that I thought was just interesting and different. I felt like the camaraderie in amongst the SEC coaches was really solid, and it's a very strong brand. And I appreciated that coming from the pack. Obviously, I felt like the pack, we were pretty close together and accomplished a lot of things as a conference. And so it was nice to kind of transition to that. But I also feel like it's a little bit, it's a lot bigger than the pack. And so there's some pieces where the pack felt pretty small and connected, where the SEC is very more business-like. And so that connectivity, as you get larger, you tend to lose some of those pieces. And so I think for me, I love the competition, I love the level, I love the exposure. But I think the one, one of the differences is just that connectivity piece.
I know it was a difficult decision leaving Arizona State to come to A&M. You could not have foreshadowed what would transpire this off season, this summer, to the Pac-12, which is obviously, as we know, it's kind of being split apart. Everybody's going their own separate ways and conferences. What was your reaction when you saw that, as far as what's happened to the Pac-12? And not that you had any doubts or guesses about your decision, but did you at least feel like, okay, yeah, that just even amplified more my decision why I did what I needed to do here and come to A&M?
Yeah, I definitely, I'm happy with my decision, very much. I align well with Texas A&M and their core values. It's a great place to raise kids. But honestly, I think anybody that's in the sport of softball should be sad about the Pac-12. I think if you truly are a fan of the sport, it's sad to see one of the best conferences just be no longer. The history of it. I don't know. I think for me it was just a sad day, and it's what it's going to look like. I don't know moving forward, and I think college athletics is really going to look different in the next 3 to 5 years. And so I don't think we're done. But some of those rivalries and just some of those pieces, I think some of these youngsters are going to miss out on that West Coast ball that we, grew up all watching and being able to see. So I'm sure they'll figure it out, and I'm sure that we'll all figure this out in this collegiate world. But I am very happy to be in one of the conferences that's very strong, and I feel like people are striving to to kind of emulate.
Yeah, a stabled league that will even grow next year with the additions of Texas and Oklahoma clearly jumping on your bandwagon and taking your idea and joining the league in the SEC. But what is that going to be like? Is how is that going to affect your non-conference scheduling moving forward? As far as with going to the SEC, as I understand it, the SEC will not add more conference games. So
Right.
from that standpoint, you won't lose more dates. But does that adjust at all your scheduling? Obviously, you'll have Texas on your schedule now for most part, and that rivalry will be renewed. You talk about losing rivalries, one gets renewed here at least in the regular season, and you don't have to worry about playing them in the postseason like at the pro last year.
Yeah, I'm actually excited to have University of Texas UT in our conference, and I'm actually excited to have Oklahoma. I feel like it just strengthens us, specifically for a softball conference. And you're going to have good softball day in and day out. And for me, somebody who loves to compete, I want to compete against good competition day in and day out. And so I'm excited about that. I love rivalry games. I love the extra layer. So Coach White and I have been talking about making sure we do a home and a home, even if we're not, scheduled. Just because I think that's good. That's the best part of college athletics is those rivalry games. And to see some of those, go, and we're fortunate enough to, now adding it, I'm excited for it. And something that I look forward to. Obviously, he's done a great job there at, over in Austin, and that's where we're pushing to kind of get over the hump over there. And so, for me, I want to play him. I want to play Oklahoma every year. I want to play, all the big dogs each year because that's the way you're going to know if you're ready or not. So I don't know that it will really change our non-conference play just because, like you said, our dates are going to be our dates. But I am really excited of the level of competition increasing in the SEC and conference. And like you said, just renewing that rivalry. And Oklahoma also brings that rivalry to us as well. And so there's quite a few of us that, Oklahoma is high on that list. So I don't know. I'm kind of excited. I'm a weirdo, I guess. I want to play them every weekend. So that's how you
Listen,
get better.
music to my ears. I'm all for it. If we're going to play Texas A&M every year, I mean, we can just have Cat Osterman, Amanda Scarborough come out, be the honorary
There we
throw
go.
out first pitches. We're good to go. I mean, let's bring that. I mean, that was fun games back in the day.
Yeah.
And they usually play him in the regional, so that makes a ton of sense. That's exciting to look forward to next year. This year, you got a lot to look forward to. I want to start with the returners. What have you seen from your returners this fall, and learning, and what did you want them to take from last year into this year?
Yeah, I mean, I think honestly, year two is the hardest. And what I mean by that is your first year, you're kind of in your honeymoon, right? So they all like, okay, new coach, new ideas, whether it be good or bad, it's just different, right? And so everything is fresh and new. And year two is like, oh, this is it. Like it's going to be like this every day. And so I have, excuse me, I have been really impressed with our returners still embracing the grit, the hard nose, the practices, the intensity, and bringing along the freshmen and under making sure that they understand this is Texas A&M softball. This is how we do things. This is why we do things. So that's been really impressive because I feel like year two, kind of like I said, the shine is over, right? And so Trinity and Rylan and Coco and Julia, we have three of our pitchers returning. I don't know. It's just been kind of a renewed sense of let's get after it, let's compete, especially since a lot of them are in, either their junior year or senior year. And so they got a taste of some things last year as well. And I think that's the other piece. And they're like, we want more. And I'm like, okay, well, if you want more, then we have to be able to do this, this, and this. And so I've really seen that from the pitchers. I spend obviously a lot of time with them of just, I challenged them pretty hard this fall. I took away, one of our pitchers' best pitch, and I said, okay, you're going to figure out how to pitch without it. And she rose to the occasion. And so that was impressive. We had another one that really worked on her mechanics, and she looks totally different. And she went through she had a kind of a rough fall and came back, this January, and just things are starting to click. And so for me as a coach, those are some life skills that are really, really important for them to get especially at this age. And so that when they go into kind of their careers and motherhood and wives and, just their adult life, they have this to kind of fall back on, is like, remember when I felt super, super uncomfortable, but I challenged myself and then I came out on this end and I was still alive, and, all those things. So that's what this fall's been about. And we've had a lot of newcomers. We had a large transfer class again. We had, we had 4 freshmen. So, just that meshing piece, I think, took a little bit of time, and there's competition. So there's never been competition here at Texas A&M. I would say for position by position, legit competition. And we had that this year. And so that took a little while for everybody to get used to. And now I think our practices are just full of energy, full of, I would call it positivity, of just pushing each other, and, iron sharpens iron. That's, kind of the saying. And it's really helped elevate our level of play.
Well, you mentioned your pitching staff. Let's talk about your pitching staff. You have some returners, but you also have some new faces in the circle. Tell us a little bit about your staff and what you envision here in year 2.
Yes, we returned 3 of them. Shaylee Ackerman coming back for her 5th year. I'm excited about that one, just because last year was really her first year being a pitcher and really getting some innings in. And so she now knows that she can pitch at this level and pitch at a high level. And so she's been really eager of just like, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. And her last couple of bullpens, knock on wood, it's been good. Throwing, obviously we've been scrimmaging and doing those types of live situations. I'm really excited about just her advancement, and she's in her 5th year, so she kind of knows it. She knows how it goes. She's in year 2 with me. So I don't know. I see her really taking a huge step forward for us this year. Emily Levitt, another one that I feel like is just more comfortable in her skin. Her first year didn't work out for her. She transferred here. Last year was a solid year, but she even, she'll tell you right now, she's like, I just wasn't myself. Like, I was trying to kind of figure out myself, get my mojo back, like all of those pieces. And I probably gave her, one of the good and bad things about me is we really kind of dissect like what her movement patterns were like. And so now she has a really good understanding. This summer, she hit that piece hard, came back this fall and said, okay, I want to address this, this, and this. And to me, when a pitcher start having ownership of their process, that's when you know that they're headed in the right direction. And so, this fall she had some ups and downs, but she stayed with it and kept working. And probably the last month, maybe 3 weeks of fall into now January, she's looked really good. And I don't know, I'm excited to kind of see her, like I said, just get back comfortable in her skin and her, just her compete mode. Emily and Travel Ball, I watched her quite a bit, was just a high level, super competitive kid on the mound. And so that's what her and I have really spent a lot of time of getting her back to that person. So I said, it's in there, sister. Let's find it. So and then last, but of course not least, is our lefty. We call her lefty because we have 2 Emily. So Emily Kennedy, I mean, she was our horse last year. I mean, that kid, started games, ended games, in the middle of games. And somebody who I think, this year has really been able to develop both that up and down pitch, and then has continued to, develop her changeup. So when you're lefty and throwing 72 and you got a changeup, it makes you, pretty legit just in that piece. So her ability to be able to locate her ball is her other kind of focus this spring, and she's done a good job with it. So again, just another year under my belt, another year of common language and understanding what we're trying to get out of our outings. I think it's been good. So I don't know. I'm really excited to see those ones like kind of move forward. And then we obviously added Brooke Vestal from Ole Miss. Man, we were lucky to get that one, to be honest with you. I think she is really good. She's going to complement our staff well. She, has gained about 5 miles an hour this off season, which is crazy, especially this part of her career. But she's another one. We talk about this with USA softball quite a bit, that how they peak when they're about 27, 26, 27, 28. Well, Brooke's in her 6th year. And so the level of our conversations and her ability to adapt and not freak out I think is just second to none. And I was talking earlier today, I'm always kind of doing wacky things, trying to figure out the next, secret sauce. And so this fall and spring, we have our pitchers on heart rate monitors, like when they're pitching in the bullpen during different phases. I want to kind of see what they do. When I put them in stressful situations, how are they recovering? We're doing some training things because player development is huge here at A&M. And so we were laughing because Vestal, no matter what the situation is like, is she alive? Like it's like nothing, yeah, phases her. And so she just kind of stays at 78. But if you think about it, she's kind of been through the ups and downs and really understands what she wants out of her last year. And so I'm excited. I'm excited to kind of see her increase her velo, keep her movement profile, and maybe add a couple of things to her, her repertoire. So it's been fun. We're a pretty tight group. I think that's the big difference from last year to this year. We just know each other more, so we spend more time together. We enjoy each other. The pitchers will go out and do activities with just them. And so that piece is really important because it's kind of the team within the team. And, the closer they are, the more that they can kind of help each other work through ups and downs of the game, the better we're going to be as a unit.
As a coach, as pitching coach especially, how do you, when you have so many the pitchers in different stages, whether it be, like a transfer coming in or their second year, etc., how do you evaluate, balance out the tweaking of some things within this thing, but at the same time, there's things they do that already been successful for them in the past. So there's that balancing act. And
Yeah.
then there's the patience standpoint, like you mentioned with Emily Levitt, who, last year probably is a regular student, having, adjusting to a new school. So how do you balance that all out as a coach and know, okay, we can tweak with some of these things, but then again, let me leave them alone with this, and then oh yeah, be patient because there are 18 to 22-year-olds at the end of the day.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's, really good coaches are successful at that. We can have all this data and information, but you still have to have that people, piece. I think for me, it's understanding where they are. So for me, it's developing the relationship first, because then I kind of know what their makeup is, what kind of makes them tick, and we just have a lot of conversations of, okay, how are you most successful? When do you feel the best? And I start to I write down a lot of things, and you can see what that puzzle looks like. And so then I take that puzzle piece and I mirror that with the analytics, the 4D motion, right? All of that, the science piece of it. And then what I do is I present to them a plan and I say, okay, this is the plan for this year. This is the plan for the next 2 months. This is what we're going to do for the season. This is what I would like us to, kind of address years 2, 3, 4, kind of depending on where they're at. Like with Vestal, I said, sister, I'm not really going to change you very much. You're good where you're at. I think we can tweak a couple of things and be good. And she's like, no, I want you to think of me as a open canvas, and a blank canvas, sorry. And I was like, really? And she's like, yes. But she's also, her mindset's very different, right? Like she's not an 18-year-old. And so she was able to really kind of take in, and for her and I to have these conversations. And she comes up once a week and we talk about hitters and swings, and she wants to get into coaching. She's like, how can I become a better pitch caller? And so those types of things are just, I don't know, I enjoy them. And she's been, just very open, and then we have, some where, like I said, we're sitting down and we're like, okay, this is the plan, last year, this is where we're at. How did we feel that went? It went, good. It didn't go good. How do we need to tweak it? Okay, this is my goal for year 2. What do you think of it? Because my thing is if we're not having a conversation and I'm telling them what this next step is going to be, that buy-in factor at the end of the day is not going to be big. And at the end of the day, I'm not throwing like
Right.
PS. And so I want them, like I kind of said this earlier, I alluded to this earlier, when they start to own their own process and how they pitch and why the ball does what it does and understand that, that's when you become a pitcher and not a thrower.
Wow. No, that's good. Well explanation there. Speaking of Trisha Ford, Texas A&M head coach here on In the Circle, you return some players offensively. You mentioned Trinity, Julia, but you also have a lot of new faces on the offensive side. Let's talk about your offense. What do you see that identity with obviously your staff involved in the offensive side of the ball with Coach Harger leading the way?
Yeah, I'm excited. I think we're going to have a even more of a balanced attack. You're going to have Coco and Kennedy Powell. We call her KP, with some speed there. That's it's they're going to be hard to defend. And then we're going to have some horses in the big, the middle of our lineup. With it, Trinity, Julia, Jazz Hill. Those three are going to be hard, especially with those two. If they get on, the chances are in our favor. They're going to do some damage, and so excited to have that, and I tell our pitchers, and that's been the other thing that's really developed, and I'll always go back to pitching, so sorry, but they're like, Coach, we want more live pitching, because if I can face Julia, Trin, and Jazz every week, 3 times a week, and I can figure out how to get them out, like, it's only making me get better. So that's the conversations we're having this year, instead of, oh crap, how do I do this? And so, and to have Julia, Jazz, and Trin to be able to, they're like, absolutely, like, let's get as many at bats as I can. We're facing good pitching, so it's just been a really good learning environment for both sides. But I'm excited about that part of our lineup. We also have Rylan Wiggins, who tore it up, in conference play. Amari Harper, was kind of our silent over 300 hitter as a freshman. And then Keely Williams is another one that just, we always talk about as coaches, her hitability. She finds the ball. She was injured last year quite a bit, and played through it, and then had to obviously take some time off at the end of the year. But she's healthy now this year. And so I'm excited to see her compete at a high level, day in and day out. And then we got a couple other transfers that Savannah Price, who obviously when we were at ASU hit over 300. She brings a lot of depth in the middle of the field. She can play first, second, short. Has obviously played at a high level. So you have that. You have Kylie Griffin and you have Kramer Eshte, both from UL. And both of them, in the batter's box can bring some juice. So I don't know. I'm kind of excited to see what it all looks like. AC had a good fall. She'll probably be our DH or a pinch hitter, and that's a hard role, like, to be cold and then come in the game. And so it's kind of talking through that with her and what that's like. And so there's just been, like I said, a lot of competition between each spot. We have a couple freshmen that are working hard. We have Maya Perez, who's a big long ball threat and starting to figure things out and figure out her mojo. And her at bats have gotten better and better this January. So, kind of like you said, especially when you're a freshman and you're coming into a new place and trying to figure out things, there's so many things that are kind of going on in their life that it takes a little while for it to all come together. And so it's been nice. Maya's starting to put it together and look like the Maya Perez that we recruited. So we'll watch out for it. But yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
How much versatility do you have as you build your depth? You mentioned you've got competition this fall you didn't have last year. How much versatility do you have so it can give you some extra options maybe to play certain players at multiple positions to kind of, and also create depth?
Yeah, so we have a backup at least at every spot, which last year our infield was our infield. Like that was it. Like, Coco, don't get hurt. Coco, you break your finger, I don't care. Like, tape it up. And she did. But this year, yeah, we're able to mix and match quite a few places. Our outfield, the same thing. We have a couple of freshmen pushing hard, Scout and Haley Golden, that are pushing hard in the outfield. We have Allie Enright still. We have Kramer. And then we have Jazz, Keeley. So, I mean, we have, and Paige Lott. Sorry, I forgot our number 12, our 12th man, the best one. So, we are really tight as units. And that's one other thing that us as coaches really emphasize this fall, is that we got to get the outfield's got to be a tight group. The infield's got to be a tight group, because there's teams within the team. And so understanding how that affects the team as a whole, and how you're going to play for each other. So that part it's been enjoyable. So I'm excited. We have, Grayson Coleman behind the plate. Reagan Jones, you talk about selfless. She's a freshman. She's played shortstop and third base her whole life. Is still getting reps at third base, but also is like, hey, we lost Riley Valentine. Will you come back and, get some reps? And she's like, absolutely. So she's been catching for us. And, how would you like to be a freshman going through all that transition? And, oh, by the way, you're going to catch. It's not like playing outfield or second base or first base, catchy. And she's like, absolutely, like whatever you need. And so that's been, I don't know, I find that admirable. That's a great characteristic of Jonesy to have, of just serving her team and what the needs are. You don't find that every day.
How do you build that chemistry? You mentioned within the team, within outfielders and the infielders. How do you build that chemistry and that tightness when you have new faces blending in with some of the returners, especially with a lot of new faces? How do you blend that in? Is there in the fall and extent? Is it about just team exercise? How do you do it?
Yeah, it's a little bit of everything, to be honest with you. You can't force it. I think teams that force kind of that piece, I think it's very fake and just superficial. And so I think, what we try to do as a staff is understand our DNA. We have Coach Hef was in corrections for 37 years, 20, I can't remember, but a long time. And he knows how to read a room. And it's one of his greatest strengths, I think, as a coach, as a person. And so we sit down as a staff and we're very purposeful in things of like who they play catch with, who do we pair them up with this, and we change some things up. We bring certain groups in and we have meetings with them. And so it's just those one-offs that I think you start to plant seeds of how that's going to come together. And so I think the first thing is you got to shut up and listen. You got to figure out who you're dealing with, what makes them tick, where maybe some of the problems might come in. And then we sit down as a staff and we prioritize and plan out how this is going to look. And then we start implementing it. So it might be, Coach Harger might have a one-off conversation with so-and-so about this situation. Hef might see something, Eric might see something. Um, we typically don't sit down and talk to our players. They tune out after about 10, 15 minutes. So I'm not big in sitting down and having meetings and talking at them. We'll do more meetings where we discuss as a group of kind of where you're at. I know pitchers, we meet every week, just a group of us, and we kind of talk about life, school, softball, kind of all those things, and really kind of attack that people side of them, the person side of them. Because once you get to know somebody, I feel like you run through walls for them, right? Like you understand where you're coming from and understand kind of your things that trigger you or things that make you really, really excited. And one of those was this, fall when Brooke, she hit 65 up on the board and on our yak attack on our scoreboard, and the whole team in the middle of the scrimmage was like screaming because they knew that like that was one of Brooke's things. And so those moments like that, I think you can never take away from somebody, and you cherish and will remember for the rest of your life.
No, it's pretty good. You mentioned some of your staffers there with Russ Heffley, who's been promoted. Obviously, you got Coach Harger. You've added Eric Lebe. First, talk about having a deeper staff, whichever most in softball do now by having that third full-time assistant being a full-time gig. Talk
Yep.
about your expanded staff and the impact that's had on you, and then overall the people you've brought in.
Yeah, I think for the most part, that volunteer job or spot made it really hard. It made it hard because as that position, they want to be here all the time. And we were lucky Coach Hef was here all the time. But how do you financially pay for bills? Like those things don't go away. And so the ability for them to be able to come and do this and get paid full time for the full time amount of work that they were putting in, I think was huge. And I'm very thankful to obviously the SEC, Texas A&M, NC2A, like all of those people that kind of made that happen. Because really at the end of the day, you want to talk about student athlete experience, that directly affects student athlete experience, right? There's another set of eyes, there's another heart on the field, another, heartbeat of like giving them love, giving them coaching, giving them all the things that they need, that I think, I don't know, everybody's in a better space about it, right? The volunteers in a better space about it, the players are. And so it just kind of works full circle. So, I'm kind of greedy. I would like one more if I'm being brutally honest. So just because the role of the head coach has become just a really dynamic. And so being able to have somebody that's a pitching coach, one that, can do infield, one can do outfield, you have catching. I mean, we have a lot of kind of specialties, and you look at some other sports that have a higher amount of coaches per player, they're able to kind of to do that. So that's one of my things that I talk about a lot. So there's my little soapbox moment, getting us to be a head count sport and adding one more. So, and baseball, I think, has it even harder, to be honest with you. They have, what, 40 guys on roster,
Yeah.
30 something. And they're at 11.7 and, the same amount of coaches. So, and I know they have a lot more pitching than we do, but I think our sport's going that way. I mean, next year we're going to have 4 incoming freshmen that pitch.
Wow.
So, I don't know. So it's going to be interesting to see how this evolves. But Coach Eric has been awesome. I've obviously known him through the Pac-12. We've seen him on the recruiting trail. I think for me, it was really finding somebody that fits with us. We spend so much time with each other, and he's done a great job of coming in, and Eric balances Coach Harger and I very well. Harger and I are probably the more hard-nosed, um, blunt maybe would be a good
Wow.
coaches. And so Eric does a great job of kind of coming in between and sandwiching some things. So that's been good. He throws a great BP, comes from the men's world. So I've picked his brain about some pitching stuff. We were actually in here, I want to say earlier this week, but it was probably this week. It doesn't matter, a couple days ago, looking at some men's stuff because we were talking about the crow hop leap. Like, what is this game going to? Nobody really knows. Nobody will tell us what's legal and what's not legal. So, but he's just got a very calming effect, and somebody that I think brings a lot to the table. He observes things, right? So he kind of sees what's going on in the situation and can give me some good intel, but also, like I said, bridge the gap and sandwich, some of my conversations I have with players.
That's why we always have you on. Your blunt comments, and we get you on the soapbox. We're trying to move it forward for you, Coach, and we're getting there, step by step. Of
Oh,
there, I will be remiss if I didn't mention we talked about her off the air, but you also have Gianna Mancha helping you out as a
oh.
GA. Speak of that, and so what is now with having Eric on board, with having Russ on board, and are you just how do you deviate all the responsibilities? And then obviously Gianna added there, I'm assuming, to help your pitching staff.
Yes. So Gianna is a graduate assistant, so she can't technically coach the players. But her and I meet obviously every day. We go over video. We talk about what I'm seeing, what she's seeing, some things that she learned during her career. She was fortunate enough to work under Cindy Ball, who's now at UCF, who I think is a tremendous head coach, and a great pitching mind. And so we are able to kind of pick, and I'm learning from her and obviously giving her some nuggets. She's still playing, international ball, a little bit of pro ball. So she's kind of, for our players, she really connects well on the fact that she's, close in their age. And she understands the struggle. And so that's been really helpful. I think Gianna's going to make a tremendous head coach. I was saying, before we got on, that I'm going to be bummed that I only get her for 2 years. Maybe if I can make this another coach happen, she can stay on board. I would keep her. She's good. But I know I'm going to help her, place, where her next, if she wants to stay into coaching. I know that I'll have no problem placing her because she is really good at her job. Hef is kind of doing what he did for us at ASU. He's with the outfielders primarily. Coach Harger runs, the offense. And then him and Eric both do the infield work and catcher. So Coach Harger does catchers and they both do infield. So basically Harger is my right hand guy that I word vomit at, which is always, yeah, you want to talk about interesting. Our conversations are interesting. And then Eric, like I said, does all the infield. He does some base running, bunting, some short game things, and just kind of brings some other defensive plays to the plate, to the table that I'm kind of interested in. So,
We
you
gotta
know,
get we gotta put like an ESPN Plus special on U.S. coaching staff's conference. I mean, the way you're describing this is like entertaining stuff, Coach. We might have to put on a
yeah,
paywall here.
it stays in house. It stays in house. Yeah.
Fair, very fair. Let me get your thoughts. Obviously, a couple rules involving pitching. Pitch clock now at 20 seconds. And you mentioned they modified again the illegal pitch. What was your reaction to those two moves specifically this offseason?
I was actually happy with the pitch clock. I think the more we can stay on the forefront of reducing the time of our games to stay in that TV slot, I think what the SEC has done a really good job. of doing is prioritizing our TV exposure. And I think that's huge for all of us, from a recruiting standpoint, the game standpoint, the growth. I mean, all of those things. So for me, I think the pitch clock, we're going to have some bumps. And I think we all know that. Figuring out when exactly it starts, when you have a new batter, if you have a foul ball, like some of those nuances, I think we're going to have to work through and make sure that every conference is pretty similar, because that would be the worst thing, is that we're kind of doing it one way and then we go over here and they're doing it. So I have to, just tell myself to have some patience. God, when he was handing that out, I always say he skipped over me. So, but yeah, so that's been good. The leaping, hopping, whatever they're calling it, to be honest with you, I'm not in love with it. I think the umpires have a hard enough job in calling balls and strikes, and in the lane, out of the lane, is there a foot, in the batter's box, not in the batter's box. I think what we really need to get to is whatever we're going to allow in all phases of our sport, we should allow. And so I think it becomes hard when they're younger and they have one set of rules, and then they come to college, there's another set of rules. And if they go play pro or international ball, there's another set of rules. And so really, I would like for us to figure out what that looks like so we can consistently teach that. But we still haven't decided or figured out. We were just on a call late last week, trying to figure out what exactly is a leap, what's a crow hop, what's going to get called, what's not going to get called. And so we still are looking for some clarification, and we're 3 weeks out. So guess how excited I am about that. Yeah, your face kind of sums it up. So
Yeah, no, because umpires get a lot of
they get a
grief.
bad rap, 100%. Yes.
And I've talked to umpires, and part of the problem is this gray area that a lot of the rules in softball. And look, Mike Condrea obviously has mentioned this when he's been on the show, that sometimes we complicate things too much, simplify it. He would like it to be more like the international game. Just do that. There's never been an issue. Have coached in the international game. We don't have this issue when it comes to pitchers.
Right.
It's pretty clear cut. We don't have that for whatever reason in college, not just with the illegal pitch, but the obstruction rule has always been and we always kind of leave it at gray areas, which leaves it to interpretation, and each umpire is going to interpret it a different way, and that's why we have a lot of, I don't know, stress, whatever you want to describe it, friction, if you will, when it comes to some of this stuff.
Yeah, and again, I've said it already, but we're just setting them up for confrontation, and we want to try to eliminate that piece, right? Because I'm super competitive on game day. The other coach is super competitive on game day. We're going to be fighting for our team, and these could be one-run ball games. And so those calls are pivotal, just like the balls and strike call is pivotal, right? You miss a count goes from 1-0 to 2-0, or goes to 1-1, that's very different. A 2-0 count to a 1-1 count. I mean, they're very, very different. And so I'd rather us get really good at calling balls and strikes.
I couldn't agree with that. I would definitely agree with that. We'll see what happens, obviously, moving forward. You got me all nervous now. I'm really now I'm like paranoid again, because, oh boy. But I've always defended pitchers on the pitch clock from this standpoint. I'm for the pitch clock. My only thing is, let's not kind of pick on pitchers for reasons why the game goes long. I mean, the message has always been, every pitch matters. It's the most important pitch, but yet we're sending a message. Well, you got to do it quickly. There's other things that we could do too to speed up the game. Again, pitch clock helps. We've seen that with baseball, but I also don't want pitchers to get kind of picked on.
Rushed. Yep.
Yeah, you know what I mean? If that makes sense.
Yep. Yeah, and I think in international ball, you have to keep one foot in the box.
Yeah.
There's some things about limiting timeouts and, those types of things that could definitely help as well. So we'll see how it goes. We've definitely had to work on our routines, or like our flushes, like when you throw a pitch and it's not what you want. We've, always had a flush or a routine of like getting it out of your system. And now it's like, okay, well, you're going to have to do it quickly, because here it is. Like next, the one good thing is you have 10 seconds basically to get on the mound, and then you have 10 seconds to break your hands, is what they're calling it. And really 10 seconds to break your hands is a long time. And so if you can just get to the mound, and then you can kind of work through some things from a mental standpoint, you just have to kind of alter, I felt like, your rhythm I think you have the 10 seconds to then break your hands and start your motion is a long time. So that's something that we've kind of adapted to is if, they weren't quite getting to the rubber within 10 seconds, is getting to the rubber first. They can take a deep breath. Like they don't have to be looking for the sign. Like they have 10 seconds. And so that has helped us.
All right, I feel good. So you've got me now on the soapboxing here. Maybe this is our new. You and I could just do a side podcast, call it like soapbox topics and softball. There, we could spend
I'm
hours
in
on it.
it.
Is there
Yeah.
any other
I
topics
have,
or
yeah, I do have one
what do
more.
you
Yeah.
got? Go for it.
I hate that we have a large ball. We have smaller hands, and you want to know why little girls can't throw at a young age because we keep putting this huge ginormous ball in their hand. And so one of my things that I've talked to Michelle Smith and Amanda about is why do we have a huge ball when women tend to have smaller hands? Like think about men have a baseball and they get a lot of break and all of that, like why do we put a bigger ball in our hand? I have man hands, so I didn't have that problem, but I find that's my last the least the sorry, the last thing. Yeah.
Ooh,
So
you got me stumped on that one. I'm gonna be honest. I had never thought of that. What answers have you got? What feedback do you get when you bring this up?
everybody agrees, but we just like
Do you think it's
I'm gonna
just
have to put it together. Yeah, I'm gonna have to put it together. But I mean it's gonna change a lot. It's gonna change, high school, college. I don't know. We'll see.
Do you
I
think
don't know.
that's what it is? It's just this is how it's always been, and so how we play it, plus it differentiates it from base. I'm just trying to think
Yeah.
of theories behind this because I'll be honest, you got me on this one. This is one I've never had brought up to me in all this time. Now you got now I'm gonna have to ask people around about this.
I want you. And we'll have to circle back. Yeah.
All right, I'll take notes, get feedback for you. I think we've got a side gig together here. We could
There you
be
go.
on the side job there. I'll let you go on this as you get going. The season will start. What are a couple questions or keys you're looking forward to finding out about this group that you'll find out once you start playing real competition against opponents that you think will be key to the season?
Our Sunday games, period. I thought that we fought pretty hard Friday and Saturday, but Sunday got hard. And so I want to see what Sunday looks like. And that's what we've really talked about, is what that looks like. We had some games where I felt like we battled our tails off, right? Like giving up a bunch of runs and coming back and, things not going our way and battling. But I feel like we have another gear. And so for me, I want to see us put a team away when we should put them away. That to me all aligns. Like a Sunday game, putting a team away when we need to, and then coming from behind. I think teams that come from behind, no matter what the circumstances are, I don't care if it's the fifth inning, sixth inning, ninth inning, 12th inning, but those that punch back win a lot of softball games.
That is Trisha Ford, Texas A&M head coach, joining us here on In the Circle and the newest correspondent of Soapbox on the show. That's it. From now on, anytime there's a rule change, I'm calling you. I'm hitting you up. And then anytime you got to pick up a topic you want to bring up, I'm here for you. That's you've got me thinking now. You've really got me thinking. I'm probably not going to sleep now.
Oh, good. I like it though. I like it. Yeah.
Thank you. Hopefully you get some rest before the season gets going, Coach. Always a pleasure talking to you
Absolutely.
as about softball and, like I said, all aspects of the game. It's always a pleasure to talk to you. Good luck this upcoming season. I know we'll cross paths and talk soon, but always thank you for taking the time always to talk to us.
Absolutely. Enjoy our conversations always. So I look forward to our next one.